Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to look at the pre-constructed decks from 10th edition. Like I've done with previous core sets, 7th through to 9th so far, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to look at all the decks in just a single video. This is because the decks they're only 40 cards, they're only a single colour, so it's actually quite quick to get through them. Also because it's like a core set, the card complexity is quite low, so it's actually quite quick to get through all of them in a single video. So 10th edition is I quite like 10th edition. For a while it was my favorite core set. Really good reprints in 10th edition. It was the first core set that went over to black borders. Yeah, because up until 9th edition all the core sets had been white borders. So officially, yep. Now they're black bordered core sets, which I think looks a lot better. I personally don't like white borders, but a lot of people I think do like them. But yeah, it's fine. And another thing 10th edition did was introduce legendary creatures. So it's the first time legendary creatures are in a core set, which is pretty exciting, I think. So each of these decks is themed around one of the legendary creatures that was released in the set. I think there were 2 per colour. I might be wrong. There's definitely at least 1 per color. There might have been 2. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. But yeah, I think it's a pretty cool theme to have. This is the last core set for a while, honestly. The next core set after this is M10, which is like a really big shift away from the original core sets because that introduces new cards. So this is really the last core set where it is just all reprints from previous sets. It draws from all the sets up till now, so it's got like Ravnica in there. It's got some Time Spiral stuff, and yeah, I just think it's like a pretty good core set to have. So yeah, let's start looking at them. So the first one I'm going to look at is Cho-Manno's Resolve, which is the white deck. So we have 16 creatures, 4 enchantments, 2 artifacts, 1 instant, 17 lands, mana curve off to the side there. So as it's a white core set introduction deck, the theme is pretty much going to be white weenies and life gain, because the whole point in these decks is really showing like new players what each color does. And I always basically up until now all the core set decks we've looked at I think do like a pretty good job of that. So let's see. We have 2 Angel of Mercy, 5 mana for 3/3 flying, gives you 3 life when it comes in. I think it's fine. 2 Benalish Knight, really like this art on Benalish Knight. And Benalish Knight I think is actually a decent creature. So 2 cast and a white for a 2/2 with flash and first strike. So I think that's actually pretty good. I think it's a pretty good card. I like Benalish Knight, and I say this art is really, really nice. 2 Wild Griffin, just a 2/2 flyer for 3. Yep, perfectly fine. And 2 Sky Hunter Patrol, 4 mana for a 2/3 with flying and first strike. So quite an upgrade over Wild Griffin there for only a single extra white mana. But yeah, this is a good way of obviously showing to new players that Wild Griffin is fine, but if you want a bit more, you need to look around a bit more to find kind of better cards. Yeah. 2 Youthful Knight, it's just a 2 mana for a 2/1 first strike. I think perfectly functional. Youthful Knight is pretty good. 1 Ghost Warden, 1 cast and 1 white for a 1/1. Taps to give a creature +1/+1 to end of turn. Really nice. There's no kind of timing restrictions that these white cards usually have. It's not limited to attacking or blocking creatures. It can be at any time, which can be good to potentially survive like a removal spell or something. So yeah, I think Ghost Warden's pretty good. 2 Loxodon Mystic. I'm not so keen on there being 2 of these. So it's basically like Master Decoy, but it is much more expensive. And yeah, it's got higher power and toughness. But this ability feels basically it's at odds with itself, right? I'm going to go on a little tangent here about Loxodon Mystic. So 5 mana for a 3/3 is like not great stats. And you can spend 1 white to tap it to tap target creature, but then you're not attacking or blocking with a 3/3, which is like fairly decent stats to be doing stuff with. This effect is just the creature is too expensive to have this effect. Basically, like it's kind of a waste. You want this effect on a smaller creature like Master Decoy, which is like my benchmark for measuring creatures with like this ability, because you can play it earlier and you get a lot of value out of it because you've played quite a cheap creature that has an effect that's very, very strong, whereas having to spend 5 mana on this creature, by the time you might need that ability to tap down target creatures, it might be too late. That's just my read on it though. I'm just not too keen on Loxodon Mystic. And a single venerable monk. I think this might be the last time he gets printed. I think this is he's seen through all the core sets so far. I think it's nearly time for him to rest. 2 cards and a white, just a 2/2 gives you 2 life when he comes into play. Yeah, fine. You know, you can rest now, venerable monk. Your duty has been done. Single Ancestors Chosen. This is a weird card to have reprinted in 10th edition in my mind. Whopping 7 mana, 5 and 2 white for a 4/4 with first strike. Which is like pretty expensive, honestly, for that stat line. When it comes into play, you gain 1 life for every card in your graveyard, which might be a lot because it might be late game you're playing this. I don't know. It just feels too expensive. I'm not a big fan of Ancestor Chosen. Like, yeah, 4/4 first strike is okay, but at 7 mana and to gain just maybe only a little bit of life as well, I just don't think it's worth it. So one of the rares in the deck and the legendary creature is Cho-Manno, Revolutionary, who's a reprint from Mercadian Masks. This is like much better art than the original Mercadian Masks art, in my opinion. So 2 colors and 2 white for a 2/2. You prevent all damage that would be dealt to him. And you have like this absolutely great combo where the other end of the deck is Pariah, which is an aura, goes on a creature, and all damage that would be dealt to you is dealt to an enchanted creature instead. So you put this on Cho-Manno, and basically your opponent has to find a way to kill Cho-Manno, or you're not going to lose apart from like decking out. Or some other weird lose condition. But yeah, this is really nice. They have this combo in an introduction deck, and really just kind of, I think, it highlights to new players that like, yep, Magic is a game full of like these cool combos and stuff, and like here's a perfect example of one, right? And I don't know, I just get a nice warm feeling imagining like a younger player maybe picking this up and seeing these 2 cards and like the light bulb going off, and that's it, they're hooked then. So yeah, I really like this combination in this deck. A single Sarah's Embrace, 2 mana and 2 white for this is kind of a classic aura. I really like it. Gives the enchanted creature +2/+2 flying and vigilance, which is pretty strong combination. Power and toughness and keyword boosts and stuff. Yeah, pretty good aura. Single Condemn, 1 white mana to put an attacking creature on the bottom of owner's library, and the controller gains life equal to its toughness. A good teaching card, I think, for new players again. That I can imagine some new players might want to use this card because they don't want to give an opponent life, but they'd quickly realize, oh, it's better to essentially deal with the creature not permanently, but putting on bottom of the deck is basically permanently, and just giving your opponent sort of like 3 or 4 life to avoid having to deal with a big creature at all. So yeah, I think it's a good teaching card for a core set. 2 pacifism. We know pacifism. Single Angel's Feather. So these are upgrades from Mirrodin now. So 2 mana artifact. Whenever a player casts a white spell, you gain 1 life. These stick around for like quite a while, like all the way up to at least M12, I think. They're okay. They're kind of like new player traps because new players tend to overvalue life gain. But yeah, I think it's still a fine card to include. And a single Icy Manipulator. This is a really good reprint actually, and for 10th. Ice Manipulator, 4 mana artifact, pay 1 and tap it to tap an artifact, creature, or land. Just obviously really flexible effect, really good card to have in here. So what could have been? We'll just quickly run through these. So Heart of Light, I think, could have gone in here. So this is like a basically you can turn a creature into, if you haven't drawn Cho-Manno, make your own Cho-Manno with Heart of Light. Just makes a creature into like obviously a super good blocker. Holy Day, just prevent damage. Soul Warden, I would have loved to have Soul Warden in this, just because Soul Warden I feel is such an iconic white card, and Angelic Blessing just because it's a pretty strong trick. I think it's not a trick, it's not instant speed, but it's just good, isn't it? So let's move on to the blue one, Arcanis' Guile, which is the blue deck. So 10 creatures, 8 instants, 3 sorceries, 2 artifacts, 17 land, and mana curve off to the side there. So it is a blue core set deck, which means basically a bunch of flyers and a bunch of bounce and card draw, again showing off what blue does. I've said it before, blue I always think is the hardest colour to teach to a new player because it requires kind of a better understanding of like tempo and knowing when to counter and when to bounce stuff. But yeah, I think this deck does an okay job of it. So we have a single air elemental. Really like this art for air elemental. I think this is the art that sticks for quite a while. So 3 colours and 2 blue just for a 4/4 flyer. Yep, perfectly good. Like the absolute gold standard for just blue flyers in my opinion. Single Aven Fisher, 3 cards and a blue for a 2/2 flyer. When it dies, draw a card. Yep, perfectly good. 2 Cloud Elemental, 2 mana and 1 blue for 2/3 flyer. It has high flying, so it can only block other creatures with flying. I think this is okay. It's 1 extra toughness over like a Windrake. Windrake, that's the card I'm thinking of. In exchange, I think that restriction is actually is not great. I would have preferred it if it was like higher power instead. So it's essentially then a cheaping snapping Drake, but it is what it is. It's okay. And 2 Sage Owls, still, he's another, like Venerable Monk, kind of been through every core set we've looked at so far. 1/1 flyer comes in and you rearrange the top 4 cards of your library. Yep, pretty good. Single Thieving Magpie, 2 cards and 2 blue for a 1/3 flyer. Whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Yep, perfectly fine. Single Phantom Warrior, 1 card and 2 blue for a 2/2 unblockable. Again, like another card that new players get really excited about. I think just being able to see like, whoa, it's unblockable. I can kill you in in 10 turns if I attack with this, which is I mean it's true. I really like Phantom Warrior. It's a good card to include in the core set, I think. So one of the rares is Arcanis the Omnipotent, who is man, I love this guy. So 3 colors and 3 blue for 3/4 for a legendary wizard. I really love this that he doesn't have a race or a species or anything. He's just a wizard, which is really cool. So his ability is to tap to draw 3 cards, which is really, really strong. And you can pay 2 cards and 2 blue to return him back to hand so he can dodge removal. If you had the mana, you could tap him, draw his 3, return him to your hand, and then like recast him if you had like a ton of mana. I think Arcanis is great. Just tap to draw 3 is really, really strong. And require, that's all he needs to do is just tap to do it as well. Great card I think to have in 8-inch decks because it's such a big flashy effect, and it will very quickly teach new players about card advantage. Denizen the Deep I don't like. So 6 colors and 2 blue for an 11/11, which has no keyword abilities. It's a reprint, I think, from a Portal set, which is why it doesn't have like trample or anything like that. The artwork is a bit unfortunate. We all know what that looks like. It looks like a big green, this ability is not great. When it comes into play, return each other creature you control to its owner's hand. If this was like an evacuation effect, like it returned everything apart from itself, I think that would be like obviously a lot better. But it only returns your stuff, and it's just I don't think that's just worth it for an 11/11, which has like no other abilities. Because it has no protection ability, so it can still be like terrored or dark banishinged or just like unsummoned or anything or pacified, anything like that, and you potentially have just set your board back a lot. Not a good rare to have, I don't think, and a really weird inclusion, honestly, in the set as a whole. And then a bunch of bounce and counter. So a single boomerang, 2 blue to return any permanent to owner's hand. Can return lands if you want to be mean. 2 cancels. So cancel is now officially taken over from counterspell. I can't remember if mana leaks in this. I think it might just be cancel rather than mana leak. It's just counterspell, but it costs 1 more. It's fine. Weirdly, wasn't any of the Time Spiral decks, I don't think, because it's a reprint from Time Spiral, but I don't think it's in any of those decks, which is weird. Otherwise, I would have talked. I don't remember talking about it, so yeah. 2 remove soul just counts as a creature spell, fine. I would say blue decks, especially like this, which are light on creatures, want to counter creature spells more. It's kind of like a preemptive kill spell, really, if you think about it that way. And then 2 unsummons, which just bounces creatures. Yep, perfectly fine. 2 cancel the Soratami, just 3 mana to draw 2, perfectly fine. Tidings is just a bigger cancel of the Soratami, isn't it? 5 mana to draw 4. And a single telling time, so 1 card's in the blue to look at the top 3 cards of your library, 1 into hand, 1 stays on top, and then 1 goes on bottom of your library. I think this is a fine card. It's technically not card advantage because you break even, you spend a card to essentially draw a card, but then you can mess around with the other 2 and just set up your next turn and put the least useful one away. It's okay. And then single Kraken's Eye, it's just the blue lucky charm, gives you life whenever someone plays a blue spell, and a single Rod of Ruin, which is kind of expensive artifact, 4, and then 3 to tap, 3 and tap it to do 1 damage to a creature or player. So it's kind of weak, but it's fine, I think, in one of these core decks. So what could have been? I think there's a few options here. So I think instead of Denizen the Deep, Either Evacuation or Clone, I think they would have been a lot better than Denizen the Deep, because that's honestly not a great card at all. Other potentials here: Deluge, just to tap all creatures that don't have flying; Persuasion, to gain control of an enchanted creature; Puppeteer, to tap and untap stuff; and Wall of Air is just a big flying blocker. I think these would all have fit in perfectly well. But yeah, definitely Evacuation or Clone instead of Denizen the Deep, because that's just a bad card. Moving on to the black one, Evan Carr's Tyranny. Let's dive into this one. So 13 creatures, 7 sorceries, 1 instant, 1 enchantment, 1 artifact, 17 land, mana curve off to the side there. So the rare of the deck is Ascendant Evan Carr, who's a reprint from Nemesis. 4 colours and 2 black for a 3/3 vampire. I think he has now been oracled to be like a Phyrexian vampire noble, which is a wild creature type. Has flying, gives other black creatures +1/+1, and gives non-black creatures -1/-1. So really good in a mono black deck, obviously, which this deck is. And again, that's just like quite a nice, straightforward, simple effect that new players can look at and be like, "Whoa, this is really good." It's essentially like a 2-point difference then in power and toughness. Yeah, and I had a friend at the time who was like me. He's like sort of an experienced player, and he went out and bought like a few copies of this deck because he wanted a guaranteed Ascendant Evan Carr for his mono black deck, and in the new frame as well. So just goes to prove even these kind of introduction products like for core sets can still have an audience amongst experienced players. A single Mortivore. This, in my opinion, is a better rare than the Ascendant Evan Carr. Mortivore is great. So 2 cards and 2 black. XX has power and toughness equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. So if you play a big like 4-player game, he can get super huge and regenerates for a single black mana. Like really, really good card. Really like Mortivore. Single Drudge Skeletons, 1 card and black for a 1/1. Spend 1 black to regenerate them. Yep, love Drudge Skeletons. Not much to say about them. Just classic black creature. 2 Severed Legion, 1 card and 2 black for a 2/2 with Fear. Yep, good. Just kind of evasive creature. Classic Gravedigger, 3 cards and a black, 2/2 comes into play. You get a creature from your graveyard back to your hand. Yep. Like this is just like a nice list of classic black cards, which I really like. 2 Looming Shades, just a shade. It's just a 1/1. You can spend black to give it +1/+1 to end of turn. Good mana sink for late game. Thrall Surgeon. This is kind of like a weird reprint. So 1 card and 1 black for a 1/1. You can pay 1 black, 1 and a black, and sacrifice it to look at a player's hand, choose a card from it, and they discard the card. Activate only anytime you could do a sorcery. So yeah, it's kind of like a delayed coercion effect, but I think it's fine. I think it's an okay card to have. Shows obviously new players that black creatures tend to like to sacrifice themselves, and also you got synergy with like Gravedigger to get it back, and also shows that discard is a thing that black does. 2 Vampire Bats as well. Yep, classic Vampire Bats getting a reprint here with nice new art. 1 black mana for a 0/1 flyer, and you can pump it up twice. Yeah, fine. And then kind of it's a little disappointing here actually having just some vanilla creatures. So Dross Crocodile and Massive Ghouls. So just a 5/1 and a 5/3. Just kind of boring. There were, I think, better options, but we'll talk about those later. It gives the deck a bit of muscle, but Dross Crocodile I'm not crazy about just because like the 1 toughness just makes it feel so fragile. Massive Ghouls is obviously just a little better just for having the extra toughness. Bottle Gnomes. As an artifact creature, just 3 mana for a 1/3. You can sacrifice it to gain 3 life. I love the flavor text. Reinforcements or refreshments. It's great. I really like in Modern Horizons there was the bottle golems who are like the grown-up bottle gnomes. So like when they die, you get the life when they die, and they're 3/3s. And the flavor text is reinforcements and refreshments. Yeah, I just want to go off on a tangent there and talk about bottle gnomes. Dialbot Tutor, this was like a really nice reprint as well, and like with nice art as well. Just search your library for any card, put it into hand, and then shuffle. And yeah, perfectly fine in this deck. I mean, 40 cards, like maybe you don't need a tutor as much, but it's still good to have it here. Bunch of removal cards, a single Assassinate, 3 to destroy a tapped creature, Cruel Edict to make opponent sacrifice a creature, and then Terror, which destroys a non-artifact, non-black creature. That Terror art is really, really good. I think this is the last time Terror's printed though. Which is, it's fine because like I think in M10 we get Doomblade, which is basically better than Terror in every way. But yeah, I really like this art for Terror. It's really good. And then we have 2 Mind Rots to show off to new players that hey, black also likes you make you discard cards. Yep. Single Unholy Strength, just aura that gives +2/+1, perfectly fine. Single Consume Spirit. This is a great card to put in this deck. Big old X spell, so it teaches new players about X spells, and it's a big old life drainy swing card. So yeah, really really good card to include, I think. And then Essence Drain, which is just I think worse than Consume Spirit because you pay. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it is just worse than Essence. It is worse than Consume Spirit. So yeah, definitely would have taken that out and put in another Consume Spirit and a single Demon's Horn. All these decks have one of the Lucky Charms in it. So it could have been. So I said the Dross Crocodile and the Massive Ghouls obviously aren't great. Hidden Horror I think would have been fun. So 1 card and 2 black for a 4/4, but when it comes to play, you have to sacrifice it unless you discard a creature card. Night at Dusk was a really unexpected reprint in here. 1 card and 2 black for a 2/2, and you can spend 2 black to destroy a creature that's blocking it, which I think is pretty fun. Necrotal is basically Terror on a 2/1 first striking body, so again, perfectly good card. I think that could have been in here instead. And Ravenous Rats, classic Ravenous Rats, definitely could have been in here instead of Vampire Bats or the Massive Ghouls or the Dross Crocodile or something. But yeah, Ravenous Rats, classic black card. Yeah, really really disappointed they weren't in here actually. Moving on to the red one, Kamahl's Temper. So 13 creatures, 4 instants, 2 artifacts, 4 sorcery, 17 land, mana curve. It's very aggressive red deck. So a bunch of haste creatures to start off with. So Raging Goblin, Viashini Sand Scout, Lightning Elemental, Thundering Giant. They're all creatures with haste of various sizes. The most interesting one is the Sand Scout, who goes back to your hand at end of turn. While being like decently costed for its size. So yeah, these are all basically doing the same thing, just attacking the turn they come down. And then the boss of all the hasty creatures is Kamahl, Pit Fighter, who's one of the rares of the deck. So 4 colors and 2 red for a 6/1 with haste, and he can tap to do 3 damage to target creature or play. So he's just lightning bolt on a stick, which is really really strong. Honestly, you can do that the turn you play him. So yeah, if you don't want to attack with a 6/1, and I can't blame you because obviously only having 1 toughness is not great. But yeah, Kamahl's a pretty good card I think to have in here. 2 Bogarden Fire Fiends, 2 colors and a red for a 2/1. When it dies, does 2 damage to a creature. Yep, fine. Prodigal Pyromancer, so he's just blue Prodigal Sorcerer. Blue? He's not red. He's not blue. He's red. He's red. He's the color. He's the color that Prodigal Sorcerer always should have been. 2 colors and a red for a 1/1. Taps do 1 damage to anything. Yep. Single Furnace Whelp, 2 colors and 2 red for a 2/2 flyer. You can spend red mana to give it +1/+0 turn. Yep, perfectly good. It's nice to have a dragon uncommon, Bloodrot Cyclops. This isn't so great in my opinion. 3 mana for a 3/3. It has to attack every turn if able. Yeah, just not wonderful. I'm not a fan of it. Just because it's like feel bad moments. When you're forced to attack with it, and your opponent can easily block and kill it or something. Yeah, it's just not great. I think I'd prefer if it was just it can't block, because at least then you have control over when you commit it to combat. 2 Incinerates, classic Incinerate, does 3 damage to a creature or player, and a creature dealt damage the way can't be regenerated. Yep, really good for 2. A single shock, 1 red mana just to do 2. We're so close to getting Lightning Bolt back. M10 is when Lightning Bolt comes back, and shock, takes a well-deserved rest. So the other rare of the deck is Beacon of Destruction, 3 colors and 2 red, does 5 damage to target creature or player, and then it gets shuffled back into your library, so you can potentially cast it again. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. A little expensive maybe at 5, but it is repeatable, so that's okay. Single Blaze, got to have Blaze, I think, to show new players X spells. Yep, this is just, the most straightforward X spell I can think of. And then 2 Spitting Earth. I quite like Spitting Earth. 1 color and 1 red. Does damage to a creature equal to the number of mountains you control. And, in a monocolor deck, obviously that's pretty good. A single Threaten, just to gain control of a creature until end of turn. Yep, perfectly fine. Dragon's Claw is the lucky charm. And Phyrexian Vault as the other artifact. Phyrexian Vault, pretty interesting. 3 colors. 2 tap, sacrifice a creature to draw a card. Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. Gives away to have some card draw if you've got a creature that's going to die anyway. You've got a few small creatures in here. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good card to have in here. So it could have been. I think the two rares are actually spot on. I couldn't think of alternate rares to have in this deck. Arcane Teachings I thought could be okay. It's 2 cards in red. It gives a creature +2/+2 and the ping ability. So it actually can serve a double purpose. You either make a creature more of a threat in combat, or you give it an option to like start pinging away, basically. Yeah, the two might seem at odds with each other because one is obviously you want a creature to be attacking, and the other is you want them to stand back and ping. But I think it gives sort of a choice, I suppose. Cone of Flame, I think, is a fun burn spell. Basically, it targets 3 things. And it does 1 damage to one, 2 damage to the other, and 3 damage to the other. To the third one, I think that's pretty interesting. Fist the Anvil is just a pump spell, goes well with all these hasty creatures. And on the subject of hasty creatures, Spark Elemental would have been great in this. 1 red mana for a 3. It's Baby Bull Lightning. 1 red mana for a 3/1, has Trample and Haste and Sacrifice at end of turn. Yeah, Spark Elemental's great. And really, again, would have been nice if it been in here. Also, actually, quick point, Trample is in the core set because we've had, 7th, 8th, and 9th edition where we haven't had Trample because I think it was deemed like, oh, Trample is too complicated for a core set. And here we are, Trample's in a core set because it's actually not that complicated a keyword at all. So yeah, not just legendary creatures showing up for the first time in a core set. And and then finally we have Molomo's Might, which is the green deck. So 14 creatures, 6 sorceries, 1 instant, 2 enchantments, 1 artifact, and 16 land, and mana curve off to the side there. So it's just big green creatures. That's just obviously what green does well in a core set. So 2 Canopy Spiders for a 1/3 with reach. And then Spinedworm, Crawlworm, Enormous Baloth are all just big fatties of various sizes and costs. Of the 3, I think Spinedworm is probably the best one. Just because it's at a decent point on the mana curve, 5 mana for a 5/4. Admittedly, no abilities, which is a shame, but yeah. A single Rootwalla, so the original Rootwalla. So 2 cards on the green for a 2/2, and you can pay 2 to give it +2/+2 turn, but only once a turn. It's okay, I suppose. Single Kavu Climber, 5 mana for a 3/3. When it comes to play, you draw a card. Yep, fine. 2 Civic Wayfinders, 3 mana for a 2/2. When it comes into play, you search up a basic land card. And put it into hand. Yep, fine. Not quite as good as Rampant Growth, but yeah, on the offhand, he's also a 2/2, I suppose. And then Stampeding Wildebeests. I don't think this is so good, honestly. So 2 cards and 2 green for a 5/4 with Trample. So quite aggressively costed, but the drawback is you have to return a green creature you control to your hand at the beginning of every upkeep, and you've got some synergy with the Kavu Climber and the Civic Wayfinder. That's a very janky combo, but I don't know. I never thought Stampeding Wildebeest is good enough to keep setting yourself back a turn. Because you got no tokens either that you could easily just bounce and it's fine. You just make new tokens. So yeah, I'm not sure it's the best card here, honestly. So the legend of the deck is Molomo. So 4 colors and 3 green for an XX. He has Trample and he has Parent Toughness equal to the number of lands you control. So he can potentially obviously get pretty big. You could potentially he's going to be probably at least a 7/7 when you play him because I don't think you got any other ways. You have no Llanowar elves in the deck, so you're probably playing him turn 7. Or not turn 7 when you've got 7 lands out. So decently chunky when he comes down. He's only just going to get bigger. Yeah, fine. Single Mantis Engine, so 5 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature. You have to spend 2 to give it flying or first strike until end of turn. I don't think this is very good, really. It's just kind of a bit of a mana sink for a very mediocre creature. 2 Rampant Growths, we all know Rampant Growth, just 2 mana to get a land into play tapped, great. Single Giant Growth, classic pump spell. Single Overrun, which is, Giant Growth on everything and Trample. So super good card to have in here. 2 Blanchwood Armor, classic Blanchwood Armor gives a creature +1/+1 for every forest you control. So super good on Molomo. 2 Commune with Natures, single green mana to look at the top 5 cards of your library. You choose a creature from amongst them, put it into your hand, and the rest go on the bottom of your library in any order. So yeah, I think it's pretty good, honestly. Commune with Nature. Hurricane is the other rare, which feels a bit off, honestly. So at X and a green to do X damage to each creature with flying and each player. I don't think this is the best choice for a rare in this deck, honestly. I would have gone with another creature, as I'll discuss in a bit. And then we have Worm's Tooth as the lucky charm. So what could have been? So I definitely think Llanowar Elves should have been in here. because I think that's so iconic as a green card to have and like to show off. Definitely, I think should have been in here. Sylvan Basilisk is a really interesting reprint from Portal. So 3 colors and 2 green. It's a 2/5, I think. I've covered up the power and toughness because I'm super clever. Whenever it gets blocked by a creature, you destroy that creature. So it doesn't have to do damage. It's not like Death Touch. It's just if it gets blocked, you're dead. So it's like a super good target for lure. And yeah, I think it's a reprint from Portal, and yeah, I have memories of Sylvan Basilisk. Yeah, when Portal was out and we were playing Portal at school, and people putting lure on Sylvan Basilisk and just time be like, right, I kill all your creatures, and be like, oh, it's so unfair, it's the most powerful card ever, and just simpler times. Recollect, I think, could have been in here as well. Just get any card back from your graveyard back to your hand. Alternate rares instead of Hurricane, because I do think Hurricane is a bit of a miss, honestly. Either Rocks or Verdant Force. Rocks is just it has Super Trample and has Regeneration, and it's just a big 5/5 beat stick. Verdant Force would have been, I think, a lot better. So yeah, 8 mana, obviously so pricey, but yeah, we're assuming Land War Rails and Rampant Growth make that easier. 7/7, and you make a 1/1 sapling every upkeep, not just your upkeep, your opponent's upkeep as well. So yeah, I think that could have been in here. Yeah, Hurricane just feels like a bit of a weird card to include. So in summary, I think these are all pretty good decks. I do think these core set decks usually are pretty good. Honestly, all the ones I've looked at, I don't think I've looked at one where I was like, "This is terrible." Because these are, I think, obviously they're intended for newer players who are just getting into the game. And I think on the general, all the ones I've looked at from 7th edition onwards have all done like a really good job of showing what each color does on their own. Yeah, and just kind of showing the iconic kind of strategies of either life gain or drawing cards or bounce or burn or big creatures or whatever. So yeah, overall I think all these are good. I don't know. I don't know which one I think is the best. I think probably the black one is my favorite, just because Mortivore is really good. I really like Mortivore. But I think they're all about equal in terms of power. I'm not sure what they would have played like against each other, but yeah, it's just kind of a shame there are 40 cards really. But yeah, overall, I think they're all pretty good, and yeah, I think this is a fine way of kind of saying farewell to the last kind of traditional core set. And I say, including the legendary creatures in here is actually really nice as well. I think that was a good last hurrah. But what are your thoughts on these decks? Did you have any of these decks? Did you get into the game by playing one of these decks? Which one was your favorite if you got them? Do you have any fun stories or opinions or thoughts about these decks? Please put a comment below. I love reading people's comments about these decks and on these videos that I do. But that is it. So that's 10th edition. So in the next video, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to Lorwyn, which is a really fun block to talk about. But yeah, we'll do that next time. But until then, thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.